Bryophytus innatia, otherwise known as healing moss, is a blue moss-like organism that grows in the forests of Lorien. Among the elves, it is known as Ibn meaning healer or renewer. Due to the biotic and abiotic factors of its environment, such as rainfall, sunlight, and the density of other plant life, this plant has adapted to grow high up on the sides of trees. Its unique blue color, medicinal properties, ability to reproduce, and proximity to the elves all play a part in its role in the ecosystem and its overall success as an organism.
Our moss lives in Lorien, a forest in Middle-earth. It is similar to a rainforest. Large trees and lots of greenery allow the Envinyatur to thrive. It is a very wet and nutrient-rich environment. Because of warm temperatures and steady rainfall, plant life survives year-round. The tall trees create a canopy of leaves, and there is little sunlight on the forest floor. Envinyatur grows in shady areas and needs a perfect amount of water, so it grows on the tree to avoid being drowned by the water that collects on the forest floor.
Moss avoids predators by living high up on the trees. This protects it from predators that may try to eat it, step on it, or elves that cut it down to use it for its medicinal properties. Therefore, it lives longer and is less accessible to predators, making reproduction and lifespan longer. There's competition on the forest floor for space, so growing on trees gives the moss more room to grow and thrive. And excess bacteria on the forest floor is bad for the plant because bacteria clogs the plant's ability to deliver water and nutrients to the rest of the plant. Too much bacteria is a bad thing, so the location of growth on the tree is perfect.
Our organism depends on the trees it grows on for carbon, nutrients, and water. This provides a major advantage for our organism because it doesn't have to work as hard for the nutrients it needs. It simply absorbs it from the tree that is essentially gathering the nutrients for our moss organism. Additionally, our organism grows on the north side of trees in the northern hemisphere because the north side is the shadiest side of the tree, and this creates the perfect amount of sunlight exposure for our organism. Growing on the north side of the tree helps the moss survive and reproduce because the moss that gets too much sunlight dehydrates and dies. Because moss does not have a network of vessels to transport water to all parts of the organism, all cells in the moss must be able to access water and not dry out. There is environmental pressure for our moss to mostly grow on the north side of the tree to retain water.
Our moss has a blue pigment from anthocyanins to essentially inform predators of its toxicity. The density-dependent factor of predation acts as an environmental pressure on our moss to produce these toxins. This color adaptation has developed for the moss's differential survival and reproduction after a random mutation within the species was selected for and increased in frequency across the population. Predators have become aware of the moss's toxicity as a learned behavior after trying to eat it and being poisoned and seeing that reaction of other predators. While predators avoid the moss, the elves of the Lorien benefit from the topical medicinal properties of the moss, but also cannot ingest it. This moss helps to prevent infection, dull pain, and accelerate the healing process, which has been advantageous to the elves since their discovery of the moss.
In order to anchor and attach to trees, the blue moss is adapted to have a structure very similar to roots, called rhizoids. Rhizoids are hair-like projections that grow out of the moss and connect the moss high up to the trees. This enhances survival for the moss so it doesn't just fall off. Rhizoids create stability to the tree and increase reproduction because of higher survival rates. As was mentioned earlier, the moss is parasitic. As such, it depends on the trees it grows on. In order to acquire these nutrients, the moss attaches specialized structures called historia to penetrate the host's xylem. In trees, the xylem acts as a pump to transport water and nutrients within the tree. By tapping into the tree's pipeline, the moss essentially siphons off everything it needs.
All of the characteristics and behaviors mentioned previously allow the Envinyatur to survive, but in order for it to thrive, it has to reproduce successfully as well. Our moss reproduces through spores, which are an asexual form of reproduction, meaning that it doesn't need to mate with another in order to form these particles. A spore is a single cell surrounded by a thick cell wall for protection. Once the spores are formed, the moss releases them into the environment to grow and thrive. Spores are uniquely suited to the moss, as being high off the ground enables the plant to spread its spores farther away from the mother plant, leading to more widespread reproduction. There isn't much wind along the forest floor, so the extra height makes it easier for the gametes to spread. Overall, this organism has adapted to its environment extremely well. It is uniquely suited to be successful in Lorien and will continue to have an important role in the ecosystem.
Oh wait, we started.
Photo shoot time. Looks good. Sorry.
We can put like random Christmas music. Dum 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 dum. That'll love it.